This is Sarah Hegazy. She is my best friend. Because I am lobbying on behalf of the LGBTQ people in Egypt. We want the world to know what's happening to them in Egypt, especially that Sarah have left us and paid the ultimate price for the oppression she faced under Sisi's regime. My job is a professor of neuroscience, and I got involved in human rights work since the Egyptian uprising in 2011, where for the first time I felt as a gay Egyptian that I can contribute to change, as people were protesting in the street and change seemed to be on the horizon. And since then, I have been devoting some of my time in order first to advocate for the LGBTQ issues, but also for the larger political oppression in Egypt. And this is how I got involved in human rights work. Sarah Hegazy is a labor and activist and was involved in politics since revolution in 2011, and then she was involved in a party called Party of Bread and Freedom. She's an avowed communist and a Marxist. She worked very closely with workers' unions, and during Mashrou Leila concert, which is a Lebanese concert whose lead singer Ahmed is openly gay. During this concert in 2017, along with some friends, they were too excited and partying, they raised the rainbow flag. This have elicited a massive moral panic on unprecedented scale in Egypt, where the raising of the rainbow flag was seen as some kind of Western intervention to pervert the Egyptian society. Sarah Hegazy was detained, another person, Ahmed was detained, and 63 other people were detained, not only from the Mashrou Leila party, but also random entrapment on gay apps. So she was put in prison, and the allegations was she was trying to form, and as funny as it might sound, it will form an underground queer organization to topple the regime. And they really put this crime against her in order to be able to trial her not as part of the vice trial, but as part of national security trial. She was put in detention with other women who attacked her. She was sexually assaulted by her interrogators, and she spent some time in prison. After she was released, she was asked to leave the country because they threatened her they will detain her again. And with the help of an organization called Rainbow Railroad, she was able to relocate to Canada. But Sarah never wanted to leave Egypt. She always wanted to stay, and she never accepted exile. She arrived to Canada in a place she doesn't know, in the middle of people who don't understand her struggle. She tried to find psychological support, but she failed to find someone who will understand where she's coming from. Mentally, she never left Egypt. She was always in touch with me and other Egyptian friends to let herself think, I'm still there. Sadly, her mother died of cancer in Egypt. She couldn't be at her funeral. She couldn't say the final goodbye. This was the turning point for Sarah, and then she sank deeply into depression. Little help we can do. Then, in June 2020, she died by suicide, leaving us all asking the question, what could have we done more to save her? It was a big turning point, not only for allies abroad, but also for the Egyptian society generally, because after her death, there was a very big discussion about what do we do with the LGBT people in Egypt? Why don't they have rights? What if it is your sister? What is if it is your brother? So there was a wider societal discussion and the realization that we exist. Any US policy maker should know that discrimination against LGBTQ people in Egypt is systematic. It's happening regularly, and it's part of a wider strategy by the regime to induce moral panic. And usually what I have seen with many US policymakers is that they will talk about some political prisoners but not the others. We have increasingly realized that we are in the same boat, so they need to know that we are also part of this oppressive CC's regime victims. I wasn't able to go back to Egypt for the last 6 years because of the fear of being detained, because of my own activism. And yeah, it caused me as a neuroscientist, I understand the psychological cost of dealing with trauma, and I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And this also brings attention to something very important, which is mental health of activists, because if we lost Sarah, we don't want to lose more activists who live in exile. Yeah, I have many friends who are in jail. I cannot mention their names for many reasons, but they were entrapped using gay dating apps on the streets in Cairo and unjustly detained for sometimes ranging from a couple of months up to 2 years on the crime of debauchery. Gay dating apps are pretty dangerous in Egypt because the government uses it for entrapment. So you have police officers who are posing as gay individuals, and when somebody goes and meets them, they arrest them, or they try to lure them into acting as informant for the police in order to give them the names of other friends that they have. We have repeatedly advocated with gay apps, I wouldn't mention the names of them, in order to provide support for gay Egyptians, alert them to whether the state have access to the back end of the app or not, to crack down on spam, on fake accounts. And they have been helpful sometimes, but we need more to be done. And that's basically also in the hand of US policymakers to hold social media companies accountable, and this includes dating apps. This is not the worst that can happen. What have repeatedly the officers have been doing, the moment you are detained, they call your family and they tell them that you are gay, and outing someone in Egypt can lead either to death, killing by the family, or their own psychological well-being will be deteriorated. I will give you one example in the case of Hammam Bab al-Bahr, which is a case happened in 2014, where you have a group of gays that have been arrested in a traditional hammam in Cairo, and their relatives have seen them on TV. During the trial, they were acquitted of debauchery or misdoing, but after they were released, 2 of them committed suicide, one by burning himself and the other by hanging himself. It is like you walk in the street and you don't know whether you will return home or not, just because you had some random political talk. And that's something very important in a place where there have been a risk that democracy will be thrown away in the United States. And it's very important to highlight that democracy needs to be preserved under any condition. First of all, I am the only out gay Egyptian activist who talk openly that he is gay, that I'm gay, and talk on behalf of the community. So whenever there is something crackdown happening in Egypt, I'm called either by international news organization to comment on the issue, or by universities on panel to discuss topics of oppression of LGBT issues, LGBT people in Egypt. So that's the way I advocate, by bringing awareness, by saying, okay, that's happening, correct the record, because the government now is playing the game of saying whom we are arresting are sex workers and are not neither gay or trans or lesbians. But I see a very important part of my work is to clarify this truth, and also to really highlight the transnational nature of this repression across the region, but also tie it to rising transphobia and homophobia in the United States itself. And this can bring some of the US policymakers interested, because recently I have seen a spike in translating a lot of the transphobic materials produced by US commentators in Egypt. The other thing is the topic of advocating to ban gay conversion therapy. I think what needs to be done more in terms of the LGBT issues is basically to talk about it. I know it's a very contested topic and brings a lot of polarization in the region, but we cannot afford to talk about one human right and ignore the other. And the second thing, I think being silent and not going public is not working anymore. I think we need to go totally of the offensive. I will do whatever it takes to let them leave the country and relocate somewhere else where I can meet them, where they can first have a dignified life, get over their traumas, and enjoy their life. What I miss the most is her soothing messages. When I'm very angry about something politically, she will send just a couple of words and I will feel fine afterwards. I miss our deep discussions about how can we develop solidarity with other people in Egypt. It's not just about gay or lesbian rights, how to have freedom for all, for workers, for the oppressed, for anyone who is suffering under oppression. I miss these discussions very deeply. I wish we wrote the articles we planned to write together. I wish we developed the platform we discussed together just days before you died. But I promise you that we are continuing the struggle you always aimed for.